Sup everybody, nobody here. We've hit the moment in the season where most players are looking for something to target now that the story is on a break. Myself included. In my case, I've been theory crafting some items that could be useful next season. No particular order here, but I'm focused on targets that don't require you to win the lottery to get your hands on them. We'll start out in the helm with Sweet Sorrow. It's an ARC 720 RPM auto rifle that's craftable from last season, or you can farm it from Psyops. This one is a great weapon that has some sick perk combos, like Stats for All and One for All, or a triple tap Demolitionist, making it perfect for Font of Might when everyone switches to ARC subclasses next season. As a bonus, the Land Take Origin trait is a perfect match for this workhorse weapon because it will really let you hang out in close range thanks to the extra damage resistance. On top of that, it's a very accessible farm since focusing it is relatively cheap at the war table if you can't already craft it. Psyops are also fairly generous so long as you pay the intel for the second chest at the end, so you really have no reason not to go for Sweet Sorrow. While we're at the war table, take a look at Sleepless. It's an ARC high impact rocket launcher that's focusable here for extremely cheap. It's also probably the easiest ARC rocket to get your hands on. Like Hothead, which comes from Nightfalls, it really shines when you have a Gallarhorn buddy, but the real strength of Sleepless is the fact that exactly 50% of its perk combos are excellent. In the third column you can go for Surplus, Field Prep, Autoloading, or Tracking Module, and in the fourth column you can go for Chain Reaction, Vorpal, or Demolitionist. In my case, I like Tracking Module with Vorpal just for the ease of use. Anytime you have extra Umbral Ingrams, just toss them toward this focus node. Most of the other weapons in the pool are good too. Moving on from the helm, we'll go visit Europa, starting with Biting Winds, which is a kinetic precision bow. It's farmable from Varix bounties, which are fairly quick with an Empire Hunt tacked at the end. This is an excellent bow for melee builds, especially if we get a bow artifact mod next season, because it gets Swashbuckler. This quality is not unique among bows, but both of the other choices are out of the loot pool right now, so get yourself a Biting Winds with Swashbuckler to be deadly at any range and activities where you can't just punch everything in the face without thinking. Moving from one expansion to another, we have Forensic Nightmare, which is a Stasis 600 RPM SMG. It's farmable in the Throne World, and it's craftable after you've gotten 5 deep sights. Most people use this one because of Headstone, but at level 4 you can actually make yourself a Grave Robber Swashbuckler roll. It's a good weapon by itself and worth crafting anyways. Don't sleep on this one. It keeps your energy slot open for ARC special weapons, and the Mindhack Origin trait also makes it useful against beefy targets since it makes them do less damage to you while you're in their face trying to punch. It's relatively easy to get and useful everywhere you would use an SMG. Speaking of craftable, we have the Ragnhild-D Kinetic Aggressive Frame Shotgun. It's the better of the two kinetic 1-2 punch shotguns, with the other option being one small step from the moon. This one is a craftable world drop weapon, making it something to keep an eye out for more than something to target farm. And similar to Forensic Nightmare, at level 4 you can craft autoloading or subsistence next to 1-2 punch. This one leaves your energy slot open for say Risk Runner, so that you can use an ARC primary weapon. If that's not a concern, you can actually take a look at the two raid shotguns, Found Verdict and Prophet of Doom. These are a pair of ARC shotguns from Vault of Glass and Garden of Salvation, which are farmable on weeks where their raid is in the Pinnacle rotation, and both of them can roll with 1-2 punch. Found Verdict with rewind rounds 1-2 punch is unbeatable for this slot, and Prophet with slide shot 1-2 feels slick, although my Prophet just has Genesis. They're a little harder than Ragnhild to get your hands on because they come from raids, but being ARC may open up some utility that Ragnhild can't fill depending on what future fragments we get. There's also an ARC shotgun from Prophecy that can roll 1-2 punch called a Sudden Death that can fill this role. Speaking of raid drops, next up is Forbearance, which is an ARC wave frame grenade launcher. It's craftable and drops from Vow of the Disciple. Forbearance's special sauce is that in the fourth column it can actually roll Chain Reaction. This is a great ammo efficient ad clear special that can be replaced by Salvager's Salvo if you just want something without raiding at the cost of some ease of use. I like Stats for All Chain Reaction. Some people prefer Unrelenting though, because it doubles up on the healing from the origin trait Soul Drinker. This one's especially good if you're forced into a bad primary weapon by champion mods. but still need an arc way to deal with a bunch of ads. And speaking of special weapons to deal with a bunch of ads, there's the Plug 1.1 Arc Precision Fusion Rifle, which is a Nightfall drop weapon, meaning that you should see a few of these while you level crafted weapons and or farm upgrade materials. It has great perks and stats all around for a fusion rifle, with the standout being Reservoir Burst as an option in the final slot. Unfortunately, autoloading holster isn't an option in the other slot, so instead you can use a fusion rifle holster mod to give it soft autoloading. This is also the easiest arc fusion to get your hands on right now, so it's definitely a good idea to just take a peek at the roll before you delete it. And speaking of arc fusions, there's always Stormchaser, which is an arc aggressive frame linear fusion, the first of its kind. Sleeper and a pulse rifle had a baby, and this weapon claps. This is currently the best DPS weapon in the game, and it's farmable from the Duality dungeon. I'm not even sure I can describe how good this weapon is. Grab it ASAP. Even without a damage perk, it sits near the top, but look out for firing line especially. I know that some people are intimidated by the final encounter of the dungeon, but once you get the rhythm down, the Nightmare of Kaido is not scary at all. She's very consistent, and as a bonus, she drops 2 items. That's all for the shopping list, but there are a couple of other items that I'm just going to keep an eye out for without specifically targeting. Here's a bit of a lightning round. The Ikelos SMG, 7th Seraph SMG, and 7th Seraph Saw are all good arc weapons that open up Warbind cells as an option, especially the Ikelos SMG. The only problem is that they're annoying to farm since they are in the Dares of Eternity loot rotation. The Ikelos SMG can actually get Seraph rounds, which means that it has armor-piercing rounds, high caliber rounds, and ricochet rounds all in one. On top of that, it already has a great perk pool, which includes Surrounded, Demolitionist, Vorpal Weapon. This thing's next level as long as you get it with those Seraph rounds. Next, Hero of Ages. This is the only arc Vortex frame sword so far. It comes from the Grasp of Avarice dungeon, which means it's farmable, and it's going to be great for Lucent Blade, Font of Might, or Striking Light plays, plus it can get chain reaction for extra fun factor. Next, Arc Logic, which is an Arc 600 RPM auto rifle, and is trivial to farm and has some great perk combos like Killing Wind and Frenzy, or Feeding Frenzy Sympathetic Arsenal, or even Subsistence Surrounded. It's an easy pickup as long as you have Shadowkeep. I like this one a lot. Next, Point of the Stag, which is an arc bow that excels at Nightfalls when we have bow champion mods, thanks to the static roll including Vorpal Weapon. You can straight up buy this from the tower at the Monument to Lost Lights. And right next to it is Salvager's Salvo, which is an arc lightweight grenade launcher that includes chain reaction on the static roll. Unlike Forbearance, it's not a wave frame, so it's not as easy to use. But if you just want to clear out a whole wave of ads with just 1 or 2 well-placed grenades, this is definitely a hot option. In total, that makes 17 items you can add to your shopping list for this season. It should be plenty to keep you busy until we get hit with some details on what's next in Destiny. Don't burn yourself out grinding. We're sure to get some fun new toys next season, what with a raid due and more story on the way, so stay safe out there everyone, and I'll see you around.